Joining me on this special edition of the Procrastinator's Pit Stop, entitled Breaking Free from Internal Capitalism, People Over Things this holiday season. And joining me today to help me to, talk about this topic is Dani Bicknell. You might remember her from the Dab collab from our previous episode. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. And what prompted this episode actually was a documentary on Netflix. It's out now. It's By Now. The Shopping Conspiracy. And I felt that Danny would be a good speaker on this topic because we did talk about internal capitalism on our previous show. And Danny, why don't you take it away?
I had a great time on your show, and the company that I have, Dab Collab, is all about building people first businesses. And the book that's coming out that I talked about is called The Restorative Rebel. So that's memoirs and musings on internalized capitalism, and that will be coming out in the next month or so. And a big topic um, that I encounter with the businesses that I run, with myself, with individuals that I coach, my friends, everyone is this concept of internalized capitalism, where your worth is really tied to your productivity, and everything that you produce is a sign or kind of a badge of your value. And I find that this becomes really intense during the holiday season. And so, within capitalism as a system, everyone is trying to put products and services in a marketplace, and they want to compete in this marketplace. But during the holidays, we're wrapping up business quarters. And so, there's usually a pretty heavy emphasis on buy now, like this sense of urgency, which I think is really a big part of internalized capitalism, is you need to take advantage of this moment, this deal right now, or else it's going to slip between your fingers. You're not going to have it again. This couldn't be more apparent when we think of the concept of Black Friday. And so Black Friday is a perfect example of how internalized capitalism shows up in society. Thanksgiving in the United States, and I know in Canada it's in October, is really a holiday about people coming together, sharing some meals with family and friends. And without the tumultuous historical context, it's always been a favorite holiday of mine because I get to take a moment to do something I love, which is cook. And I get to share it with people I love, whether they're chosen family or biological family. But just after, the day after Thanksgiving, there's this luminous holiday, which is really just a consumer campaign, where businesses, as I mentioned, as they're coming up towards the end of the year, are trying to offload a bunch of stock. They're trying to make those end of the year sales. And so they came up with this kind of brilliant campaign. They knew that everyone would be together, sharing a meal, having a little bit of rest. And since Thanksgiving is traditionally on a Thursday, why not use that day off on a Friday to feed that sense of urgency, to really go buy things, not necessarily that you need, but you might want. And one thing that I think has become really clear is, the whole purpose of holidays, whether religious or whether created by countries, are moments to take pause. They're usually moments to come together. Um, and what we used to value in the past was people. And so we gained value from the people around us. And now through capitalism, there's value in things. So even relationships can become commodities. I get something from you, you get something from me. And I feel like Black Friday really exemplifies this by tapping into this idea that we really get value from the people around us, but that value isn't really worth something unless you are giving them something in return. And so it's kind of a genius marketing campaign that Black Friday is a few weeks before Christmas, before Hanukkah, before a lot of winter holidays. And so it puts this emphasis on you might value your family, but you actually only value them X dollars amount based on what you buy. And all of those opportunities to show them through things how much you love them are going to get expensive. So if you don't take advantage of this buy now, then you are going to lose out on purchasing that thing of value that shows how much you value the people in your life. So I think that that is a bit insidious because it really takes the experience of spending time, slowing down, eating good food, being mindful of those things, and it puts it into this date that you have to organize around, which a lot of families do. They will forego spending time with their family in order to stand outside of big stores or wake up early for those first Black Friday online deals so they can start clicking before anybody else. And that is unfortunately, I think, a lost opportunity. It's a lost opportunity to really realize that you're not going to get as much fulfillment from those things, because you're missing out on spending time with the people that you're buying those things for. Um, so yeah, that's just a little bit of my thoughts on the especially Black Friday. What I used to do is I used to participate in Buy Nothing Day. And so Black Friday for me was a very intentional holiday where I would try and not buy anything. So it's explicitly meant not participating in the Black Friday deals, and using that time to go on a hike with family, take advantage of those leftovers from the day before, clean up, be active, be mindful, focus on some self care that I might have been neglecting a few weeks before. And so that I think is one tip that I give people is the best way to not give in is to actually actively resist. And so you can plan your holiday shopping however it works with your budget. And there are some things that really are something you want to take advantage of. But instead of giving in to this idea of buying more and consuming, thinking that it's going to kind of fulfill this need you have for connection or belonging or validity, and just saying no, this is actually a day that I'm not going to do that. And it can be a challenge, but I think it's an interesting psychological experiment. And so if you don't get to participate on Buy Nothing Day on the traditional day, which is Black Friday, then you can participate on another day and see how it works out for you.
Thank you so much for those insights, Danny. They were very good, and I'd like to just add to that a little bit in that you know those sorts of things can even have a detrimental effect on our relationships because maybe we don't get that thing we're looking to buy, or not to mention that it tends to bring out the worst in people. When you go over the history of it since 2008, we've had thousands of injuries, and even 10 people have been you know actually have lost their lives for these things. And going out and like you said, standing in line, missing time with those people that you love, and then getting back and maybe you didn't get that thing. Now you're all frustrated, and you've brought that negative energy into something that's supposed to be positive. So I love this buy nothing day. I would, I'm gonna engage in buy nothing day. I think just to I traditionally don't anyway, because I mean we have Black Friday and then there's Cyber Monday and then there's whatever Tuesday now. I don't know,
Yeah.
and now they've got Black Week and it's just where does it end, right?
Yeah. I can't take credit for Buy Nothing Day. Back when I was living in Vancouver, BC, I volunteered with Adbusters magazine, and they are the ones that came up with Buy Nothing Day and have been real advocates of encouraging critiques against consumer culture. And so I'm not going to take credit for it, but it is something that I think lives on. And I think to your work around being a procrastination coach, I'm interested to see how it shows up for individuals, because I see it as it also being a detriment to people where it feels like an excuse if I can just not think about buying all these things and then I have this one opportunity to buy it. And so that in and of itself is a procrastination um, tactic. But then there's always going to be this shame or maybe this lacking because it's pretty impossible to take advantage of all of the deals out there. And so you might have a second chance on Cyber Monday, but I feel like it doesn't aid people in thinking mindfully and continuing on with the path of getting something done. It actually exacerbates the problem, which then, I'm sure you know better than me, can just result in people kind of letting go and saying, okay, well, then I can't do it at all.
You bring up a good point there, and they're really tying into that sort of crisis maker mentality, right? It's not important to do because you're going to get at something better later. And that actually ties into the whole fallacy part of it, right? Because if we leave it to the last minute just because it could potentially be better, I mean, as we've seen in all those various social videos and subsequent things that have happened, oftentimes it doesn't. And then in the end, what winds up happening is the toys that you get, or the TV that you get, or the blender, or whatever the case may be. If it's something like that, then it's often discarded within a year and a half anyway. So was it really worth it to, first of all, not only wait, but secondly, get that deal and, inconvenience yourself in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head with inconvenience yourself in that way. The brilliance of the marketing is that this is a convenience for you. We're pooling all these deals around this day, but you're actually really inconveniencing yourself in the short and long run when you try and create a whole season's worth of purchases or a whole year's worth of purchases around one day, only to be disappointed a year later when you're not using those things anymore or they're not really of value. And adding on to that, there's scams that are associated with this sense of urgency around Black Friday culture that I think is really international. And so, even though it originally started in the US, I'm based in France right now, and I'm seeing on the street people are talking, or there's advertisements for Black Vendredi, Black Friday, and they don't celebrate Thanksgiving. And so you have a lot of people that are um, now starting to say, "Oh, I have to take advantage of this thing," but they don't really know what they are taking advantage of. And once again, it's like repackaging this inconvenience and then globalizing it and making sure that everybody knows about it, even if they aren't rooted in its context. And so it just becomes, I think, this spiral where it really starts to pull us away from the things that matter most to us and from this sense of stability, saying like, no, I want to do things mindfully, I want to do a little bit every day, I want to think about these purchases, I want to think about these people. And that might not result in you buying an extraordinary gift. That might result in you realizing you want to spend more time with them. It might result with you realizing that you need to spend more time with yourself. I think that these things, as specifically the things that we buy, thinking they're going to fulfill us or thinking that they're going to solve a problem in our life, end up kind of compounding. And so we're sent down this spiral of maybe I can just do it again, or maybe I can just buy more, or maybe I can solve this. And I think what we have to do is we have to break away from that as much as we can so that we can really reconnect with what matters most.
No, I love that, and we are coming up pretty close to time here. I know that I really enjoyed this small conversation. I just like to throw one more thought out there too. Get your thoughts on it. One of the things across many cultures too, which is interesting, we're trying to, I guess the word is contaminate this idea, spread this idea. But what we don't tend to realize as people, as we're going about our day to day lives, we don't own things. things own us and they dictate our lives. And I didn't even really stop to think about this really. So we have things that we need and that we use every day. Yes, like you have a car, and that makes sense if you're driving to work every day. But for just in my own personal example, I haven't really been driving a lot. And, it's forcing me to change my schedule to go to the mechanic. It's forcing me to change my schedule to, look at insurance. So it's dictating what I have to do. So we don't really realize that, even in small ways, these things are actually controlling us and owning us, and we don't own them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think a great example of that is with subscription based models. There was a time where we owned all of our music, we owned all of our videos. There were physical artifacts that we could hold on to, and there were ours to pass on to others, to keep and cherish ourselves. But more and more, you see these subscription models where you only own it in as much as you are consistently paying. So things like Spotify and Netflix, and even you bring up cars. I'm hearing that new car models are starting to come up with subscriptions, so that if you want to continue having your seats heated or having certain functions on your car working, you now have to pay for a subscription. When the whole point of purchasing a car is something that you own and you can maintain, which is becoming harder and harder to do. So I think you bring up a really good point that we need to look at ways where we're not having our things own us, that we're taking ownership of first our lives, our priorities, and then using things as tools, not crutches, to get us through.
Excellent. Well, we are coming up on the end of the time now, but this has been a great conversation, Danny. Thank you so much for being on the show. I know that everybody's really hectic this week, but with the holidays coming up, so really appreciate your time today. Anything else that you'd like to say, maybe before we go?
Um, just I hope that everyone can take a moment to really value the time that they do have. If they don't have time off, I hope that you can carve little moments of self care. And if you do have time off, really try and unplug as much as you can. Listen to your favorite podcasts, your favorite music. Really enjoy the time that you have off, because it's becoming fewer and far between.
Excellent. What an awesome note to end on. And to all our listeners in the U.S., have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. To anyone not in the US, again, just maybe take this time to reflect and just remember what's really important. And as always, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation and inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.
Take care.
There we go. Cool. Excellent. Yeah, that's good. Oh, still uploading.